Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us in another fresh edition of Viewpoint on DBS Television. Hope that you had a splendid weekend, and according to my observational point of view, I could say that the government of Cameroon has successfully hosted the African Nations Championship in Cameroon, and of course that ended with the finals between Morocco and Mali, with Morocco coming out victorious. That said, in tonight's edition we'll be talking about economic issues related to small and medium-sized enterprises, and as usual we often have a social entrepreneur with us, Pierre Notch Avi, to accompany us whenever it has to do with economic topics. And for this week, naturally, we will be accompanied by Mange Fenashus. Pierre Notch Avi, good evening and thank you very much.
Good evening, Vanessa. Thank you
being our guest tonight.
Thank you. It's a privilege for me to be here with you once more, as always. Your
observational opinion as far as the Shan competition was concerned?
I prefer to keep my opinion personal.
Prefers to keep his opinion personal. Manga Venashus, a happy week, start and welcome.
Thank you, Vanessa. Same to you, and good evening to our viewers. It's a privilege to be there with our viewers.
And like I asked Epia Nochavi, I'll ask you the same question. Your observation as far as the Shan competition was all about?
It was a good one for Morocco, that they demonstrated their football might at that level of championship. It was a good one that Cameroon did what they did. You know, everybody seemed to be, you know, appreciating the effort of Cameroon in organizing the first, I call that an international competition post-COVID-19, because after the onset of coronavirus from 2020, this is the first international competition of this magnitude, and I think Cameroon has set the pace. I think that FIFA, CAF, their Liga, all the other competitions, they can take the example of Cameroon and go on with their competitions. But we cannot run up without saying the I will call it immature outing of Cameroon from the competition, because hosting the competition and being sent out the way Cameroon left is another side of the competition.
They reach up to the semi-finals and you term that immature?
Vanessa, anybody going in for a competition is looking for the trophy. And Morocco is not having...
not everybody can have the trophy.
Of course, Morocco is having horns to get that trophy, so we could as well.
Thank you very much for your point of view.
Thank you,
Ladies and gentlemen, let us have the first part of the show. Viewpoint is a debate program divided into two parts, and the first part has to do with the questions: is the involvement of small and medium-sized enterprises in national development strategy feasible? Epia Nochavi, your point of view, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Manga Venashus?
I think the other way around, no.
No. And can these small and medium-sized enterprises have an impact on the transformation of national economy? Manga Venashus?
Yes, if. So I take yes.
But with certain conditions?
Yes.
Epia?
Yes.
Yes. Let us have the debate. Involving small and medium-sized enterprises in the national development strategy, we are trying to find out, can that be done? Is that possible? Can that be achieved? And Epia Nochavi, in your opinion or your point of view, you think that that can be achieved? So how can this be done?
It's very feasible. When we talk about the feasibility, you've already said, we're talking about the possibilities. It's important to understand what the government has already done so far, and if we start saying that it's not possible, it means that we are saying that what the government is doing is not possible, or cannot be realized. I think the Minister of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises recently signed a communique which shows how much it's a continuation of what has already been going on from the year 2020 which shows how much the government is ready to involve small and medium-sized enterprises into its national development strategies. And with this, they have in mind reaching out to these small companies, for example, companies dealing with agro products, seeing how their products can be transformed into finished goods, seeing how they can be assisted financially, look at the possibilities of making resources available, look at the possibilities of these small and medium-sized enterprises having easy access to finance. These are things that the government is already doing in order to help these small and medium-sized enterprises. If the government is already doing this, we can say with certainty this is already making small and medium-sized enterprises part of the National Development Program. The government is trying to restructure its financial capabilities. It's trying to have a new structure, a new financial structure. And with this, the Minister of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises has involved small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, if we should sit here and say that it's not feasible, it means we are saying that small and medium-sized enterprises cannot have an impact on development. That is the point. Because Mr. Venancio says, no, I will be waiting to hear why he says it's not feasible. I will be waiting for that. But already I would like him to have in mind that if he is saying that we cannot involve small and medium-sized enterprises into the National Development Program, it means he is saying that small and medium-sized enterprises have no contribution to development. But is that true? What percentage of companies, what percentage of small and medium-sized enterprises do we have in the whole pool of companies in Cameroon? Among the number of companies that we have, if you count the number of small and medium-sized enterprises and the number of big companies, which side outweighs the other? The other. We have more small and medium-sized enterprises. Everyone today understands that being independent, being an entrepreneur, creating an idea, developing an idea is the ideal way for us to do things on our own. And this is what so many young and old ones are trying to do. So many people are quitting their jobs every day. The coronavirus pandemic, which struck us early 2020, reminded us again, and we've spoken about it on this platform, of the need for us to be independent, the need for us to grow businesses on our own. And I will tell you today that 70% of companies in Cameroon are small companies. 70%. Now, if we are saying that we cannot involve them as part of the national development strategy, then what's the strategy?
Anyway, while waiting to get more insight into your point of view, let us get that of Mange Venancio, who thinks that these SMEs will not contribute much in the national development plan of the country. Mange Venancio.
Vanessa, the key question here is the feasibility of that involvement. If we put it simply, the doability of that involvement. Involving them is one thing. Achieving the target for involving them is another in the context of Cameroon. It's true, we have a ministry dedicated to, they call it small and medium-sized enterprises. But when you look at the roadmap, when you look at the budget, when you look at the report, the balance sheet of this ministry for the past 1 year, 2 years, you tend to ask yourself the question, does it even worth its place? Because when we have small and medium-sized enterprises in Cameroon, how do we assist? How does the government assist them to stand? Vanessa, small and medium-sized enterprises in Cameroon, can just take them in just in any field, any sector. Take, for example, agriculture. How many people venture into agriculture and succeed? Why do they not succeed? When we look at the first thing is access to finance. We know that that is a major handicap that most of these small and medium-sized enterprises that they go through. Access to finance. Many of them don't know where to lay hands to to maintain their capital so as to continue producing. There are small industries that are facing competition from other bigger industries, well established national as well as multinational industries. Remember that Cameroon has a policy that I call it that does not favor these small and medium-sized enterprises, because even if it comes to, I was talking about industry, agriculture, rice, we import rice, corn, we import corn, tin tomatoes, we import them, spaghetti, we import them. You have to talk of even toothpick, we import them from China. Toothpick there, you can even use a razor blade and sharpen yours and cook. We're importing them from China. What type of assistance do we give them? I'm talking of financial assistance. Even where this financial assistance is made available, corruption comes in. If I don't know you, no matter how lofty, how attainable, how objective your project is, I will not select it. Because you must, they say, rub my own mouth with the oil before I give you the food. That is the corruption syndrome that we have in Cameroon. If it is not corruption, bottleneck bureaucracy that we have in this country. You have to pass from this other office to this other office to this other office. You are dealing with an entrepreneur who is not even having the finance to be rushing from one office to office, all sets of documents that you need to validate before you are given access to that finance. How do you expect that to be feasible? How do you expect that to be doable? If it is not a bottleneck bureaucracy, it is projects that do not even meet the need of the people at the time. Vanessa, we are talking about coronavirus that came into the scene. In normal situation where we had to help these small and medium-sized enterprises, we would have banned the importation of this face mask. Banned the importation of these hand sanitizers, and they will have to produce them in Cameroon. If they had to produce them in Cameroon, how many of these small and medium-sized enterprises would have been able to take off from there? But if you want to see, look at a ceremony that has government ministers. How many of them are having the locally made face mask? What they are wearing are all imported. How do you expect a local Cameroonian businessman who is trying to invest into that sector to survive? Hand sanitizers that we have, they are being fabricated in Cameroon here. Cameroonians are fabricating them. How many of us are using the ones made in Cameroon? Are we not using the one imported?
Anyway, they are too expensive.
The ones made in Cameroon.
Of course.
Now, being that expensive, is it not the role of the government to subsidize the cost so as to bring down the cost? Look at what the government own version of face mask that came from Sikam. What was the price? 1,500. Whereas a tailor, simple tailor in the quarter, source it and is selling it at 150 francs, 200 francs. There should have been an opportunity for the government to invest on it, thereby giving Cameroonians the opportunity to be able, to get into the production of this face mask. That's just an example. If you take into somebody who wants to invest into producing rice, for example, Chinese nationals are in Cameroon. They are producing rice. And you know what they do? They produce rice, send it to China. We import rice from China, and then we want the Ndob rice in Ndob to take off. How would you expect a small farm holding, maybe an association, maybe somebody who wants to involve into rice production within the Ndob Valley? I don't want to talk about the UNVDA. Within the Ndob Valley, as an individual wants to launch a small scale production, how would he survive? How would he survive? So these are the things put together. You see that the idea of involving them in the national development strategy, it can be doable if the government put right all these issues. If we put them right, you may see that we will be able to take off, Vanessa. All
right, Mange Vinicius, thank you very much for those points. So, Ipeno Travi, after highlighting these loopholes as per the point of view of Mange Vinicius, what can you say about that?
When you talk about loopholes, I don't see them as loopholes. There's a problem. In every production process, there is input before output. Mange Vinicius is talking about output. He has forgotten the input. He has mentioned some aspects which I mentioned. but he's looking at the negative aspect of it. He has mentioned he spoke about competition when it comes to the product. He spoke about access to finance and all of that.
I think which is the greatest.
Which is the greatest. He spoke about access to finance. What we need to look at, the first question is, he started his debate by saying, when we look at the report from the Ministry of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises over the years, is very poor. But what Mr. Mange has forgotten is, this is a program that was started just last year. So when we want to talk about the feasibility of something, we should also look at, in reality, when has the government started action? Yes, they've not been doing it over the years, but what are they doing now? What they are doing now, is it possible? I will tell you that it's possible. It's possible because the government is looking at the input. Mr. Mange is already talking about the output. The government is looking at the possibilities of making it easy for these small and medium-sized enterprises to have access to finance. The government is working on, the ministry is working on making it possible for these small and medium-sized enterprises to have quality finished goods. You asked him the question, you said some of the products, I don't want to go into specific products. It will be like I'm not encouraging what's being produced in our country. But you mentioned that some of the products that are being produced are more expensive than what comes outside. And sometimes the quality might even be lower. That is the problem. This is what the government is looking at the possibility of having finished products that will be of a better quality than what we import and at a cheaper price. You cannot work on that without working on the input. For example, if we were to produce 30 million face masks, do we have the natural resources, Mr. Mange?
If it's a question that I can answer,
yes, just directly. Do we have the resources?
I take it straight away, because if you have to go down and find out how many local tailors out there were able to produce, because producing a face mask, the purpose of the face mask is to infiltrate or block the person. So I think we do have it because we are not obliged, medically speaking, to use the texture that was used for the imported face mask.
I'm talking about even
the resources.
I'm talking about the resources.
If Cameroon produces cotton,
yes.
If Cameroon produces loin,
where is the cotton?
Of course, produced in Cameroon from the north.
Where is the cotton? Cameroon produces cotton. Where is the cotton?
Of course. All right. All this enters into the feasibility of it.
That is the problem. The government is working on the input. That is the point I want you to understand. The government you cannot be talking about finished products, face masks, when the government has not worked on making sure that the resources are available so that the face mask can be produced. You cannot be talking about sanitizers when we've not worked about making sure that the resources for the production of sanitizers are available. These resources are not available. If a farmer somewhere in Dop will produce his pineapple, or somewhere in Louis, let's look at the Mongo because they produce a lot of pineapples. We produce pineapples there, let's say 10, 20 tons. The question is, can he preserve them?
Not at all.
That is the problem. That is what this ministry is trying to do. Look at the possibility such that individuals like this can have these products, can be able to preserve them till the time when they can produce and maybe have a finished product, which might be a natural juice or something. And we don't have that. And that is where the problem is. And that is what they are working on. And this project has not been on for 1 year. So you cannot say it's not feasible. Something that has not been on for 1 year.
That's actually the point here. The national strategy, national development strategy came into place to replace the old strategy that we had that failed. Why did it fail? We are bringing it down to a 10 years because it's 2020-2030 program. Now we are streamlining it to 10 years because the first one failed. We are looking at it. Is it possible to work? Why is it not possible to work? Why is if we run a SICAM, if we're able to run a textile company in Cameroon, you cannot tell me that we cannot produce face masks to use in this country.
It is.
So it's not a question of lack of resources. If we are able to, if we are able to produce the pineapple, then we don't have the means of either transforming it, we don't have the means of either preserving it, we don't have the means of either making it available into the market. Perhaps I'm talking in terms of infrastructure like roads, These are the points that does not make it possible for us to include them into the national
and these are the points that the government is working on.
Which means, for now, they are not yet doable. They are not feasible. For now, they are being involved in the national strategy.
Highlights another point of bad roads to take them.
Of course.
Thank you very much, Manga Venatius and Notch APA. We might not end this debate today, but we have to take a second part of the question. Can these small and medium-sized enterprises have an impact on the transformation of the national economy? APN Nochavi, you think so? What are some of those impacts? Is it more of a negative than a positive impact, or in general, what are they?
there is little or no, but let me just say little negative impact. A company, legit company, because there are people who set up companies for dubious reasons. There is little or no impact a legit company can have in terms of negativity on the economy. These companies can have a lot of impact. I started this debate by mentioning the percentage of small and medium-sized enterprises in Cameroon. We are over 70%. 70%. If each of these companies were to be improved upon, were to have the possibilities of having their final product, their finished goods, their finished services into the market, they will contribute a lot to economic growth. They will contribute a lot to education. They will contribute a lot to the social aspects of the economy. They will contribute a lot to the reputation of the economy. Some countries in Africa today have a bigger reputation because of what they produce, because of what they send out as output. Nigeria is a giant. When we talk about the economy in Africa today, not that Nigeria doesn't have problems. Nigeria has all the problems that Cameroon can have. If we want to start comparing, some of the things we cry out here is the same problems Nigerians are crying out there. But when we talk about economy, we will still say they are giants. Why? Because in Nigeria, initiatives are supported. In Nigeria, they consume their own. In Nigeria, they buy their own. In Nigeria, they focus on what belongs to them. So that's just to say, that's not to talk about the fact that we should focus on our own or we should not focus on our own, but that's to say small and medium-sized enterprises can impact their economy. How many small and medium-sized companies do we have in Nigeria? The percentage is huge. Now, how many big companies in Nigeria today were big companies 10 years ago? They were not. There were small companies that have been given the possibility of growing because their population,
the possibility to expand
because their population consumes their product. The population comes for their services, and this is the problem. So we can have a bigger impact on the economy, a bigger impact on development, if we consume what we have to support now the aspect that Mr. Venatius was talking about, bringing in the first point. If we consume what we have, if we consume what we produce, if we focus, like the first part says, the feasibility of our involvement in national development, if we focus on this, we work on it, and we see into it, give it the possibility of growing and becoming bigger, give some of these small companies the possibility of becoming bigger, then the impact will be more than what it already is, though it's nothing huge.
There's nothing huge. Manga Venatius.
Yes, Vanessa, I come back to my point. You know, when I answered to that question, I said, if we can. Now, if the tax system in Cameroon is addressed, they can have an impact in the transformation of national economy. But you will not understand somebody who is struggling to set up an enterprise, and just it suffices that you just indicate, you know, the location or the way it is found. The next day, tax officials are in front of your house asking for money. Where is the turnover? After what period? In some countries, they would encourage these small and medium-sized enterprises by exonerating them from taxes. These taxes are to give them the possibility, to give them the time to take root, to give them the time to settle. Once they are established, then they can involve in the running of the, you know, they can be involved in the contribution of the state budget, that is through taxes. But then we have a different issue. We have a different situation in the country.
Different approach.
Nosh was saying something about consuming our own. And it comes back to the point, what I was saying, that if we give them a favorable business climate, they would be able to withstand. But in as much as you are trying to venture into a business, remember when we're talking of small and medium-sized enterprises, it is not creating something new, right? It is operating something from the basis, actually small as the name sounds. But you would not be trying to establish something like that, and you meet the competition from a multinational company whose tentacles are already quite wide, solid than yours, and you will survive. One, he was talking about meeting the quality, talking about meeting the demand. You try to produce something today, people don't have it because you cannot be able to supply it, make it available. Once they don't have it 2 or 3 days, they turn to their old, to what they had, and you find yourself dying down. So I think that if we want to include them in the national economy, we want them to be involved in the transformation of the national economy, the government has the duty to assist them. Assisting them is not theory. Assisting them is assisting them in real issues, in reality, what they need. They don't need seminars. They don't need symposiums where they come and at the end, it is the minister wants to have a report, to take it back to your own. What is the follow-up of those who attend this seminar, these seminars? These workshops. I would want the minister to come out by saying that last year we had 16 farmers who attended our seminars. Out of these 16, 10 are already established. These are that is a real progress that we're talking of. But then we still keep on, every year we are strategizing, every year we are laying the grounds, and these grounds, nothing has ever taken place. So I think that if we can carry out the idea of taxes, if we can carry out of giving them a favorable business environment, they can, be involved in the transformation of national economy.
Thank you very much, Mange Venantius. Not PLT. We have come to an end.
Yeah, before I conclude, I would like to mention one point with regards to what Mr. Venantius said, talking about tax exoneration. Small and medium-sized enterprises, it's impossible for a government to grow if there is complete freedom at the level of taxes. If we just say because they are small companies, they'll be exonerated from taxes. We've already spoken about on this same platform about what the government is doing with regards to taxes. And the government has been doing more. It's just that sometimes we expect more. If you have a small company that you created today and you register that company legally, you're exempted for taxes for the next 6 months to 1 year. Yes.
We hope so.
That's what happens. It's not a hope. It has been happening before. I have benefited from that. So I know I'm saying something that I'm very sure of. You're exonerated from taxes for the next 6 months to 1 year. If you legally register your company, you don't come and say this is a small business I just started and you don't have any document. If you have legally registered a small business, you have all documents, you're exonerated from taxes. Just that sometimes when we say register company, register business, people do part and they leave part. They get some documents, they don't get some, and that is where the problem is. So it was just to clear the air on that aspect. So conclusively, what I would say is, when it comes to small and medium-sized enterprises, yes, I think we can have an impact on national development. I think that we can have a big C when it comes to restructuring, transformation of national economy. It all depends on what the government can do to assist these individuals who are putting in much effort, and it also depends on what these individuals are ready to do. Are they ready to take the businesses to the next level? Some people are just contented with having what to eat and give to the family. But if we are ready to create an impact, and the government brings the support, we will all create an impact.
Thank you very much, APN Nochavi, a social entrepreneur. It has always been a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of today's edition, where there is a will, there is a way, and of course a possibility. So we are hoping that in the years ahead, small and medium-sized enterprises will have their roots implanted all over Cameroon. That says, thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned at 7 p.m. You'll be having the English newscast in the English, presented to you by Cynthia Ngwebo Rada.